Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CSTV. I'm your host Kathleen Igaltuto, Madam CS, and this is The Striker. Stay tuned and have it raw and real. The Striker today takes us to the operation against banditry in the Northlift. The question is the ongoing operation actually trending towards a success story? Or what are the loopholes that are likely to mar the success of this operation? Stay tuned. Kindly remember to subscribe, like, share and comment on this video. About 3 weeks ago, the Ministry of Interior under the Cabinet Secretary Interior Honorable Kindiki actually launched the Operation Flush Out All Pandits, all Operation Secure the Northlift. As we all know, the Northlift has been a place or a region that has been largely hit by bandits. It's not something that started this year or last year, but it is something that has been in the region for over decades. And there's been a lot of efforts by different government regimes in the country to flush out the bandits from the region, but with vain. Now, having announced Operation Secure the Northlift, somehow we have had some success stories in relation to the recovery of the firearms and ammunitions. But now the question remains, with the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Police Service officers on the ground to fight bandits, we have also have a lot of retaliatory attacks by the bandits. The question now could be, is this war against banditry likely to come to an end successfully, or actually it is just another theater of proving who is powerful, who is mightier between the government legalized apparatus of violence in the name of the Kenya Defence Forces and the Kenya Police and the Kenya National Police Service officers against the bandits in the region. As at 13 March 2023, the Minister of Interior announced that everybody should be able to vacate the region, and this is termed as part of the operation to help fight the combatant bandits in the region. And this raises a lot of questions, and the first question that it raises is vacating the non-combatant residents of the Northlift really necessary as part of this operation? Secondly, how impactful will this question of people be, or a fiction of people from the Northlift be, in terms of getting rid of the bandits in the region? And I'm asking all these questions because, come to think of it, we don't deny the fact that eviction has been one of the methods that are used in operations. But it's one of the methods that actually, when you resolve to using it, then you have to have proper planning in terms of where do you take the people who you evict from that particular region, and how are they registered, their documentation, etc. Now, I don't think that the eviction that the Minister of Interior actually has launched yesterday is going to be a successful one because of the following. Number one, there's a very large probability, and this is what actually is going to happen, that bandits are going to move together with the non-combatants. So in this particular case, everybody's going to move, including the bandits, because remember, as people are moving, they are not leaving behind their belongings. The pastoral communities have very, very special attachment to their animals, because that is what constitutes not only part of their culture, but it is their daily livelihood. and therefore there's no way they are going to move and leave their cattle behind. So in this particular case then, what we will witness are the people moving with their cattle. And remember, we are talking about cattle being at the center of raiding or of cattle rustling in the North Rift. And therefore, with this treasured commodity, cattle, being moved together with the non-combatants, the bandits will follow the non-combatants, because then they know if they remain behind, game over, because what are they remaining behind to do? The commodity that they want has been moved. So you realize that as the residents in the North Rift will be moving from one region to another as a result of this eviction, the cattle rustlers will also follow them to where they are going, because there is where they will find animals to steal. Number two, why I see that this one is not going to be a success story as from this eviction point of view is we are moving people without designating them to new places where they are supposed to be. So you wake up one morning and then you tell people to move out. Even if you give people 1 month to move out, the question could be to where? We live in a country where land and property is such an emotive issue. So when you tell people to move from where they have known home for decades and decades, and they are supposed to move to nowhere, where do we want them to go? There's a very high probability that wherever they are going to go, they are likely to enter into conflict with the host community. Because as they move with their cattle. Where would these cattle graze? You know? So the question is, did the Minister of Interior actually provide a place where the people that are being told to move out of the North Rift, where they are going to be hosted in terms of housing, in terms of water, in terms of basic needs? Because honestly, moving people without giving them a place to go makes no sense. It not only exerts pressure and strain on these families, but also violates their human rights. 3, we have children among these people who are moving. So where are they going to be enrolled in school? That could be another question, you know. They are moving from where they have been at home, where they have been schooling, and we are taking them to new places. Actually, these new places are not known. So we are just taking them as foreigners, as strangers in new lands. So the question is, with this current school registration system, the question is, how are these students going to be registered? And how are they going to continue with school? Because at the end of the year, when these students will sit for the national examinations, they will not be spared as children from the North Rift who were not in school for 3 months, for 2 months, even for 1 month. They are going to be subjected to the same examination, you know, to the same marking system and same grading system. So by the end of the day, what we are going to have is a North Rift that continues to be subordinated and to be marginalized, both economically, education-wise, and therefore bringing up a generation of young people who are easily vulnerable to recruitment as bandits. So over time, the problem of bandits goes on and on and on. Fourth is the question on the registration of the people that are moving. To make an effective eviction process, you need to know who is moving from where and where are they going to be hosted. So you need to know the person who is moving, how many children does he have? And then you write, also you document these children, such that you have a record of the people you evicted from a certain place. In fact, this documentation could have been the first step towards actually differentiating the bandits and the non-bandits. Because if you have the documentation of the people that you are evicting, it is easy to trace where they went, who has had a problem, who never reached the destination, who is missing from the final destination where they are supposed to be, etc. But right now, as families are moving from the North Rift to unknown places, I'm sure that the government doesn't know even how many families are moving. What is the total number of people who are moving? How many school-going children are moving? Actually, the government does not know who is moving and to where. So you see already this creates a confusion, because you don't know who is moving. You don't even know whether the bandits are also moving. So after we have told everybody to move, and then now the Kenya Defence Forces and the Kenya National Police Service officers are coming to the ground. Who actually do we expect them to come and meet? Even those caves that are acting as hideouts for these bandits will have nobody, because the bandits have no business in being in a place that is bare, a place that doesn't have people, a place that doesn't have cattle. So you see, this eviction, I don't think it's going to offer the fruits that actually eviction as the process of disarmament and securing a region is supposed to have, because it has been poorly planned, poorly executed, poorly done, and the outcome actually, I think the one who envisioned this eviction didn't envision it in the long term, and the outcome that actually it could bring on the table. Apart from eviction, there's another reason why I think the operation in the North Rift actually is not likely to be a successful one. One, it is because we have two security wings operating in the region: the Kenya Defence Forces and the Kenya National Police Service officers. As we all know, we learn from history. We saw what happened at the Westgate Mall attack in 2013. There was this superiority complex and a blame game among different wings of security officers in the country. You know, there's always this superiority complex. The Kenya Defence Forces are known as individuals who secure the nation against external attacks. That's why we see them many times dealing with terrorists and Al-Shabaab attacks in the country. That's why we send them to countries like Somalia, DRC, to fight terror groups. And then we have the General Service Unity officers. That is from the National Police Service. We know them as people who restore order where there is such conflicts like now the bandits that we have. So there's always a superiority complex in terms who is superior, who is more trained, who is more competent among these security wings in the country. Now, taking the Kenya Defence Forces to work under the National Police Service is a blunder. The Minister of Interior has to decide. Is it the General Service Unit officers that are supposed to work against banditry in the North Rift, or is it the Kenya Defence Forces? In this case, it will be easy to hold one unity accountable for any failure or for any ignorance that may occur in the field. But having the Kenya Defence Forces being kind of type patronized by the Kenya National Police Service officers is not likely to bear a lot of fruits. And I think since the first operation began, in as much as, you know, we get to know from the media that arms have been recovered, the success story has not been that forthcoming, because we see bandits striking and striking. And finally, the other day, the Minister of Interior, Honorable Kindiki, actually said that he's about to give the names of the commanders and the politicians who are actually supporting bandits in the government, in the North Rift. We cannot run away from the fact that actually we have warlords, most of who are politicians, and sometimes commanders, and even business people who benefit from this, you know, cattle raiding practice. We cannot run away from that fact. But the question is, as the Minister of Interior, Honorable Kindiki, has all the authority to actually handle those people one-on-one. I don't see why a whole minister should come out to threaten that I'm going to give the names of people supporting banditry, instead of giving those names, and not just giving those names, you know, going for those people one-on-one. Kindiki, where he sits right now, he has all the state apparatus of violence at his disposal. He has even the intelligence. So let's him not look like a vulnerable person who actually doesn't know niseme ama nisiseme. You know, if I mention names, what comes of me? So, you know, if it is a common citizenry, or if it's just a member of parliament who was threatening, you know, in 2 days' time I'm going to announce the names of people, you know, we could understand, because it could land in hot soup without enough state security, etc. But for somebody like Honorable Kindiki, a whole minister of such serious security docket in the country, shouldn't look vulnerable before Kenyans, threatening that I'm going to announce the names. By now, I feel if actually Kindiki knew the names of the politicians and the commanders who are actually supporting bandits in the North Rift, he could have mentioned them. Because without him coming out politely, as the position he holds dictates, and giving us these names, and you know, we see this being arrested, people being arrested, interrogated, prosecuted, and action taken against them, then it makes no sense. It is just, it sounds like normal politics, you know. So we are in a very delicate situation as a country, where we see the Minister of Interior all the time addressing the media in terms of what the government intends to do to end banditry in the North Rift. Honestly, when it comes to security, I've always said that some security actions in the country need to be secretive. You know, you don't need to come out and tell people that you're doing this. I'm sure from where Honorable Kindiki sits, he feels like, let Kenyans know that I'm working. But, you know, it's one thing to tell Kenyans what you're planning to do or what you've done. And it's one thing Kenyans feeling that which you have done, or seeing that what you have done. If actually the Minister of Interior in this country had put all efforts towards eliminating banditry in the North Rift in such efficient and effective manner, the Kenyan citizens could have, you know, you could say, you could have felt the waves. You could have heard the Kenyan citizens say, Kindiki is a man and he has done this, you know, or Wapa Kindiki, etc., you know, because then they could have seen the difference. But when the minister keeps on addressing the media, and he addresses the media today, the same night we hear that the Ali Pandits attacked in the same place where he was addressing the media, it tells you something is amiss. Perhaps they need to go back to the drawing board and strategize on the operation secure the North afresh. They need to find out what is not working and why it is not working. It is one thing to get maybe 4 firearms or even 4 AK-47s from people who have surrendered. And it's one thing to say that those firearms are no longer with the people in the country, in the region. Why I'm saying this is because somebody may be having 3 guns and they decide to surrender 1. So you see, already 3 guns are in the hands of somebody, and he has only surrendered 1. Somebody may surrender 2 guns and remain with 2. So it also raises the question on how did it come that in this country, the pastoral communities have guns in the name that they are securing their cows using guns, So there's also need to go back to the drawing board and ask these hard questions. How comes we see in the media all the time, even young boys, holding guns in the name that they are actually taking care of animals in the field. So the question here that we should be able to be asking ourselves, at what particular point in this country did we start allowing the common citizenry to hold guns in the name of cultural safety? And if there is such a thing documented anywhere, legalizing that, I think the first point towards the end of these guns is first, dismantle that phrase wherever it is, and rule that let every person take care of their animals using the normal hard sticks. Because guns being in the hands of fairly young boys, very young men, whenever even a small fight, disagreement occur in the grazing fields, they are likely to use it very fast. And that's why you realize that apart from banditry, apart from cattle rustling, we have a lot of ethnic clashes and the interclan clashes in the North Rift and the northern part of Kenya. That's why you will hear that the Degodia are fighting, I don't know, with the Borana. We have the Turkana fighting with the Pokot, etc. Because if people already have apparatus of violence in their arms, what will stop them from using those apparatus of violence? So you see, the current operation as it is, and from where I stand, it is poorly conducted, it was not well planned, and it is execution strategy is not well calculated. We have a lot of information being given out about this operation that goes against the security ethics actually in terms of securing a country, especially for such a region that has had this crisis for a long period of time. The eviction notice and the eviction strategy is not going to bear any fruit because of the fact of the reasons I've already stated. And I think it's high time that this operation is re-examined and then re-executed. Otherwise, let's keep the conversation going. What's your opinion? Next video, I'll explain what do we mean by bandits, because people have been asking me to differentiate between bandits, terrorists, and militias, all and gangs. So in my next video, I'll be able to explain bandits in a very holistic way. So stay tuned and stay with Madam CS, the Queen of Security, here waving bye.